All right, we're live.
Okay.
Just have to go to a different browser.
Cool.
Hey everyone, well, thank you for joining us for our speaker series. Today we have Cleopatra Draper here with us today from the Kendall Moore Show in our speaker series. My name is Isaiah Moore. I am the lead videographer and sometimes co-host of the Kendall Moore Show at WVON on Friday nights from 6 to 9 p.m. A little bit about me, I'm a student at Columbia College, Chicago. I'm a senior. I am graduating this year. I'm a double major in television and cultural studies. I've done a lot of work in the community here in Chicago since I've been here. I do a lot of work on campus, but it's not for me today. It's for Cleopatra. So just gonna get started. Just getting to know you and who you are, and so I guess the first question is where are you from?
Sure. And it's Draper, so I gotta make sure
Draper.
is watching. So I just got married. So where am I from? That is an excellent question. So I am born and raised in Chicago, and literally I'm from everywhere but north. So I've never lived on the north side. I live on the far south side now. And a natural native.
Beautiful. Where did you study in college? Where did you study? And where did that kind of after graduation take you? How did that prepare you for your career or what you do now, if it did at all?
It totally did. So I'm a General Assembly scholar. Now Attorney General Kwame Raoul. At that time, he was state representative. I earned a scholarship that took me to Eastern Illinois University. I was already slated to go, but I was able to afford to stay. How about that one? And from there, a lot of hustle and scraping and working on a number of jobs and securing a number of scholarships to continue my studies and graduate. And I left Charleston and I came back home. So that's the short version. And I came home and I was a scholar at Jane Addams College of Social Work. So there at University of Illinois, Chicago, I earned my master's. And my concentration was community health and urban development. And it took me a lot of winding roads because my bachelor's is in communication with the concentration of television broadcast. And I went on ahead and I studied social work, but that scope was a community lens. So the foci was community health and urban development. From there, I went and worked for Chicago Public Schools. I was already in CPS at that time, my second year of grad school. And I started to work as a post-secondary manager. So I would manage schools. I was relatively young. I started at 23. And I would be of support to the post-secondary specialist. And I found that work to be most befitting because of my journey to pay for school and secure scholarships. I actually got good at it. And I wanted to turn that hustle into a shared skill to help elevate more Black children to succeed, right? And go away to school, because a lot of times people feel as though that can't be achieved, and I disagree. So I was a college coach for a number of years, almost 7, and I worked at an array of schools, Team Inglewood, South Shore, before it closed. And you have the new international school. I worked at Julian, and my pathway was very winding, kind of like my educational pathway. It was very fruitful, to say the least.
Yeah, I totally I some of that resonates with me a lot more because, one, talking about some of the things you studied, like in terms of social work, my mom and my father work in that kind of realm. My mom's a teacher. My father does social work kind of therapy and helping people who have been incarcerated come out and get rehabilitated back into society and things like that, and with drug addiction, all that kind of stuff. And then with television, that's what I'm studying right now. And my second major is cultural studies with a concentration in urban studies and how that kind of works in the world. And then like how you're saying, paying for getting scholarships for college as well. I'm originally from New Jersey, so coming out here, it was pretty expensive, and a lot of times they told me I couldn't pay for school and things like that, or you'd be in loans for the rest of your life or whatever. And but I didn't feel as if any of the schools where I was from offered what I wanted to study or what I wanted to pursue. because I mean, my path isn't really as conventional as other folks. And so I did work hard as well to like, get scholarships and have the last 3 years of my college be paid for the most part and not have to spend too much money. And I like how you are like empowering folks to do that and knowing that that can be achieved and done, even though there is obstacles to climb and challenges to overcome. It's something that, the work has to be done sometimes. So yeah, I really that really resonates with me.
And
And
to your point, to double down on that, like I said, I admit winding pathway. So I'm no longer with Chicago Public Schools. In fact, they cut the umbilical cord in 2016. And that was one of the best liberating moments of my life, because from the age of 18 until 27, I worked every year throughout undergrad to graduate school. I was in school every summer. So literally throughout my entire ending of my teens to my late 20s, I never had a moment to collect myself. I had some study abroad opportunities to, have that international be one with yourself moment, but never a time to just break and just say, hey, what's going on? And that umbilical cord releasing led to my pathway as an organizer. So I wear a lot of hats. So I've led Chicago Public Schools into $6 million securing scholarships for kids. And then from that chapter, I went on to organize in my community because that was a need. It wasn't until I got a little older that I drew the connection back to my grad school studies and experiences as to why that was befitting for me. Because, to get on the ground and interact with people, it takes a special personality to just say, hey, I'm here. I want to be of support. Let's do this transformative change. We don't have to live in these conditions. We deserve better quality of life, so on and so forth. So that community organizing experience catapulted. And I never looked back at Chicago Public Schools. I went on to greater pastures, as they would say, and worked on a number of campaigns and all type of experiences, phenomenal organizations that are doing great work across the city. The world became an oyster once again, and I just wanted to explore where my talents would take me. So that's how far my educational experiences have allowed me to advance because of, like you use the term non-conventional. I am not traditional by any means. And I think that's what's special about being a millennial.
Yeah, in terms of like, I love pointing out parallels, and it's really hard for me not to like talk about them. Like, how you saying you were in school like every summer and like not having a break with that. I had the same kind of experience since my sophomore year in high school. I would go to college prep programs at like Princeton University in a college in New Jersey, and like then obviously coming to Columbia and then doing that and then doing summer classes every other year or so. And I wanted to know like what kind of like self-care methods have you taken in terms of like, oh, so sorry. What kind of self-care methods have you taken in regards to, centering yourself and coming back from, being, so involved in education and the work that you're doing and like being like nonstop and being so busy and like wearing so many hats and doing community organizing? Because that is a very, hefty commitment, because I've done on a smaller scale than you, of course. Like when I came to Columbia, I joined our Black Student Union and I did community service initiatives with them and for them, like as their chair. And I'm not from Chicago, so a little bit harder for me, but I had to like reach out to like different organizations and things like that. And so I wanted to know like, what's the process that you take to, care for yourself and to give you that kind of like motivation to keep going, but also knowing when to like take a step back, relax, collect yourself, and then go fight another day.
To be very honest, even as a social worker, I struggle with self-care. I'm constantly reminded by family and friends to take a moment. I go hard, literally every day. Sunday may be a crash day. In fact, Sunday is my scheduled day of rest. I've scheduled this Sunday of rest last week because of all of my commitments. It's not anything that I would recommend to anyone. I am personally working on doing better, but at times I find myself being pulled, and will tap into the reasons why because of all of what I've done, that
Right.
I get a lot of taps from a lot of people, whether it's to help my ward, this community initiative, I need you here, I'm on the radio, is multifaceted, and I am still learning how to balance and manage time. It's a
Right.
skill that was thoroughly introduced in undergrad, but that's a life skill and that's ongoing. Now I'm married. I'm actually looking at another batch of puppies my dog had during COVID. I have 2 dogs and 1 puppy. My sister's in college. A house full on top of everything I do. I am balancing and maintaining buoyancy, not to mention during a global pandemic. On top of that, but oftentimes I will indulge in Netflix and chill. I catch up. I actually been watching The Simpsons. I haven't seen the first episode of The Simpsons in God knows how long, but it took me into a happy space. So I do find
Good.
moments of where I am at peace, whether it's animation or film. I am casually reading this book that I collected based off the show I have on the radio and the class that I'm taking now. So there are moments where I just find things that I like to do, and I do them, and I just try my best to manage my time.
Yeah, absolutely. It is always a learning process in terms of figuring out what works for you, how that looks, what time you could make it. I do think being deliberate with your time and like saying, this is the day where I'm just gonna have to myself. I think that's really important as well. And
And if I may say this, I struggle
mhm,
with absolute no's. I had somebody
right,
tap me today, nope, this week, asking me to write a press release. And I was in a conundrum in terms of submitting a pitch for my small business. And I had to be selfish with my time. And I struggle with that, but
absolutely,
I knew that I could not do that commitment to the delivery that I would want to give. So you would be shortchanged. So I
hmm
don't put my name on anything. So instead of me just saying, "Oh, okay, I'll do it," for the sake of not wanting to say no, I said no. And in my 30s, my early 30s, I am learning the power of no. There's a
right,
there's a no, and I don't really have time for in betweens because of all of what I'm committed to do. Is either I can do it or I can't, and I'm not going to give you subpar. So that's a part of that lesson too, as to investing your time. I teach that to my college sister. She's a junior at Loyola. Your time is one of the most valuable attributes one can give. And when you give it, don't take it for granted. And
right,
also, it's compensated too. So it has to be a level of fulfillment with time because I can't get it back.
absolutely. Well, very well said. I struggle with that as well with saying no and like being selfish with my time or like prioritizing writing to prioritize because sometimes it's just as simple as like I just don't have the energy or I'm in a headspace to do it right now.
That's right.
And that's okay. And I think taking those steps to be like, I can't do it right now. Thanks for thinking of me. Thanks for knowing that I'm able to do it, but I just can't do it right now.
That's
And I
it.
think it's something you always got to keep learning with. Um, so yeah, you talked about being on the radio. So what are you seeking to accomplish with your show? Rebuilding Black Chicago.
So I am your favorite millennial, WVON 1690, and I have humbly accepted this opportunity because, as I shared, my background is in television. A lot of people don't know that about
Right,
me. First internship was with NBC5, and that connection and that journey. If somebody would have told me 10 years ago how interchangeable that would have been for me moving forward, I wouldn't have believed them because TV and radio have different attributes, but it's been a natural fit and one that I'm constantly learning how to evolve and shape. And the goal of rebuilding Black Chicago is to acknowledge the deficiencies in the quality of life across the city of Chicago when it comes to Black people. When you
right,
look at our corridors and our opportunities for procurement and sustaining our small businesses and or growing the space for new entrepreneurs, you have to look high and low. For those that have sustained, we thank them, because if it had not been for the staples that have came, gone, or stayed, we wouldn't have anything to look forward to. And for those that have gone, it's for a number of reasons. And for those that are forthcoming, providing the skills and tools. So if you listen to the show, which I hope you do, I myself have grown stupendously. I am fortunate to be under the tutelage of Bruce Montgomery. And if you don't know Bruce, you need to know Bruce in order to make something happen in the state of Illinois and the city of Chicago when it comes to business, because he is the business advocate. And in saying that, recognizing our deficiencies is what we live. Like I said, I'm born and raised in Chicago, and understanding how the city function has been the better aspect of your chambers of commerce and who's who. The who's who in the city and where the resources live is what's most important in order for you to stop being enabled. You know, you have to step out on faith. That's why I'm wearing the shirt, faith over fear, and go out and do. You know, what I've accepted in terms of my own community. I live in the far south region, Roseland, Allgill, Pullman, West Chesterfield, Chesterfield. You know, what happened to Roseland is tragic. And I do look at leadership. I am grateful for our Roseland businesses that are fighting every day to overcome the loss of foot traffic, the lack of resources, the direction and the hopelessness, and lending that support. So Rebuilding Black Chicago is here to acknowledge where we went wrong, how we can build up, the resources that we can collect, we share and we distribute with the hope to empower and build. Currently myself, one of the first early on programs we introduced Laura Lane, Executive Director of Sunshine Enterprises. I am now a student because I believe this much in this pathway, because everybody has ideas. And it's not enough your ideas is in your house. There's money to be made, it's at the table, and they need you to drive it and be the change. You know, it's not enough for me to go out on the ground and talk constantly about what we don't have. We recognize the symptoms, and here's where we go wrong in Chicago. When you come to Chinatown, what you are embraced with is cultural heritage. When you come to Black wards, you know, I recognize symptoms: poverty, mental illness, up and coming Black folks. You have some different blocks where you can see where there's middle class and poverty and all the symptoms of where is the structure of the heritage and our pride. On my block, we have our African flags out, and I'm starting to see that on 95th. We have heritage, we have culture, we have an understanding. We lack some leadership, and I'm gonna call a spade, and that's where we go wrong. And we need to stop voting like what we know. We know we eat Campbell soup, but there's progressive ownership. There's all type of opportunities. You have to start doing the homework. Right now, the foci is Donald Trump. There's a lot of Black Trumps in leadership too. And that's where we're wrong. And we need to own it, groom, prepare. Because if we're not preparing, we're not building generational wealth opportunities and legacies. So when I talk about Chinatown, you look around Chinatown, what do they drive? Toyota, Camry. Those cars are made where? You know, when you look around us, where are we connecting to? Where's our opportunities of procurement? So when you talk about rebuilding Black Chicago, understand that is a Black excellence and there's a demand. $40 billion came out from Pritzker's budget, not once, but twice. 1% of that went to Black businesses. That's unacceptable. Wow. But if you don't know the numbers and you don't have people echoing the problem to educate, it's a lot of miseducation when it comes to politics and just the whole understanding from a business lens of what's really happening. All you hear is, well, I'm on the ground a lot. When we gonna get a grocery store? And what they gonna do with this? And when they gonna do that? Who the hell is they? Until you realize you are they, you control your destiny in your own community. You're the captain of your fate. You elect your leader. You hire and fire them. They represent you. The people hold the power. And until
Right.
that really resonates, a lot of times we have been so oppressed and beat down where we don't feel like we're in control. Oh, you
Yeah.
have total control, absolute control. And that is the premise of rebuilding Black Chicago. It's whatever you envision, but you have to work for it. You have to be steadfast and committed. Nobody's going to come and do it for you. Ain't no white horse riding. I'll tell you that much. And if they are riding through your community, they're coming to take something. Only you can be the change you want to see. So that's why I stepped up, and I'm really taking this serious and trying my best, not even trying, I am doing my best to understand entrepreneurship and businesses and the functionality of the true functionality of a chamber of commerce, because that chamber of commerce is supposed to work for my community and my ward.
Exactly. Yeah. Thank you so much for that. I mean, this goes into like part of our next segment of like what I wanted to cover in regards to voting and activism and things of that nature. So kind of like, I know you touched a little bit about on voting and things like that. I wanted to know a little bit more about, you know, your broad scale view of voting and its current process right now. If it works, if it doesn't work, how can it be reformed if needed? Like, what are your thoughts on like that kind of stuff?
For everybody that refuses to cast a vote, I need you to realize you have. No vote is a vote for the other side. And a lot of people say, I get frustrated when I hear, oh, it's the battle of the lesser of the two evils. Well, what role have you played to cartel that? Well, I
Right.
can't play no role. What can I do? Oh, yes, you can. You step out and walk out on faith. But to have faith, you got to have courage. My run for alderman was about recognizing and reflecting on how I grew up in Chicago and the symptoms that I talked about: poverty, plexiglass, dirty restaurants, low performance schools, the whole nine. That has been the genetic makeup of communities I've lived in Chicago my whole life. And for me to break every chain and come home and want to live with my people does not mean that I have to live in suffrage. And so what? That you haven't been to school and all that. I did it. I went there for you. It's enough of us that have done things to do things for other people. And everybody doesn't fit every mold. There's a space and a place for everyone if they play their part. And that builds to our quality of life. And the only way you can improve that is if you vote. Your vote is your voice. Barking and blogging on Facebook, your inner thoughts won't move metrics. But
Right.
finding people that can step up and be courageous and speak on the behalf of what's righteous for people is the type of person that I'm looking for. Now, true enough, Donald Trump, Joe Biden. I mean, when you look at all of what we've been through in these last 4 years, I'm not questioning it. I'm disgusted. I am waiting for America to step up, because not even half, 1% of this foolishness would not have been tolerated from President Obama. And that says a lot about being Black in America. A lot. I ain't blind. He doesn't impress me. Everything he's ever touched has folded. From Trump University, everything he's ever touched. He inherited millions, hundreds, and squandered. He had more chances than my children's children will have in a lifetime. I don't take that lightly. I'm offended that he's sitting in that house. I'm offended that he's raising the tax bill at his real estate properties. I'm offended how dumb America is in this moment and how much he's made a mockery of our just systems. But what it also exposes is the fact that they never went away. They being those that didn't want us here, whether it's people of color, Black, brown, Native Americans. The nerve of you to say you from a country that already had inhabitants. Excuse me, you came over here on a boat just like we did, but I just was in chains. So
Right.
I have some real issues when I see those that are in support of, but I don't get into those fights. I've only met one Trump supporter in my life, and from this video, I ain't interested in meeting anymore. And as for me riding with Biden, I ain't had no problem saying that. This is what we have until we do better. The call to the Democratic Party is to begin the grooming of talent. So if you feel you got talent, step up in your community, raise the flag, and demand to be acknowledged by moving metrics where you live. Don't tell me what you think you can do. Show me what you've done in your community. How are you changing your own environment? And then I'm willing to take a gamble on what you can do on the next level in a branch of government, because that's what it's about. So don't knock 47 years of experience. Joe Biden I truly believe it is his season. And for his background, a lot of Black folks are hollering the 94 crime bill. Well, it's a litany of legislators that are on that 94 crime bill, a litany. Well, he never apologized. That apology won't change the fact that both my parents have been incarcerated for different reasons, not because 94 crime bill.
Right.
That won't change the fact of what happened to Black folks. But what will change for Black folks is reparations. So those are the type of fights that I'm talking about, that I'm interested in. And unfortunately, neither candidate has that on their schedule. So at this juncture, this is what we have. But the only way we can make it work is if you cast your vote.
Right. Yeah. And even like in regards to the 94 crime bill, I'm someone who, like, one of the first things I like heavily studied was mass incarceration, war on drugs, kind of things like that. And the 94 crime bill comes out a lot now. And it happens now because that is a strategy that like the Republican Party has used to target specifically Black men in our community as a reason not to vote for Joe Biden. They'll be like, oh, they locked you guys up with a 94 crime bill. When in fact, Joe Biden is someone who has come out as regard to the statistics and seen what the harm has caused. He hasn't like made an apology, but he's acknowledged the wrongs of it and how it should not have been done in that kind of way. And I view like Joe Biden as someone, not as someone who I necessarily want in the White House, but as someone that is going to move us in the direction we need to go. Someone who is receptive to the change that we are like trying to enact and to the voices we have. I mean, as you just see now over the summer, it's happening for like the last decade or so, but like with the protests going on over the summer and all that kind of stuff, he's receptive to what we're saying and acknowledging what we're saying and how we're doing it. We have the current administration who doesn't even care, doesn't even like acknowledge it, doesn't even do anything to, disavow white supremacists or anything like that, hold anyone accountable. So I think Joe Biden is that person that can like just put us in the right direction. Like I forgot
You
where.
have a Trump administration that boldly lies.
And that lies about everything.
I am thanking God. Let me be clear. I am thankful I have lived to see how far you're willing to take it. See, it was one thing with the smoke and mirrors and behind the scenes.
Right.
This lets me know you've been doing this all the while, right? But we couldn't prove it. See, Trump came in and said, why y'all hiding? Take them sheets off. We could be out as good people on both sides. Excuse me. Trump has not even addressed Breonna Taylor. I'm sure he hasn't even called her mother. It's shameful. That young man in Philadelphia, he brought a knife to a gunfight, but he had mental illness and they gunned him down in front of his mother. Trump has said nothing. The country wants us to grapple around children in cages, which is disturbing. But this country been snatching babies from families as long as I can remember, according to my genetics, since we got off this boat. And it wasn't just 1619. You've been doing it all a while. So when you look at the systemic and cultural practices of this country, it is ugly. The 1619 project, Trump won't even read it. He doesn't even want it installed. He said he will fund a school if they teach that and have the audacity to constitute the 1776 project. So you have to look at the stories that they want to uphold of the greatness of white culture and this other story that they don't want to acknowledge about how Black folks made white culture great again, right? So I don't have time for the foolishness. So when I see a brother or sister that is lost, I ask God to have mercy on them because they know not what they do.
Right. And like, it's always this kind of thing of whiteness doesn't exist or has a definition without any relation to blackness, because
Yes.
they're in constant contrast with each other, because whiteness kind of created what blackness would be in terms of race and all that kind of social structures in that kind of regard. And they have nothing of their own besides colonization, imperialism, all that kind of stuff, genocide within like white history and lineage. There is no way that it's hard for them to find any kind of ethnic or cultural kind of demographic, especially here in America. You know, in Europe, they have their little niches of countries or whatever. But here in America, they don't have that. All they have is the hate and the, you know, the vitriol that they've been, you know, given through generations and passed down because of their the belief of inherent superiority. And it really kind of, it's disheartening, and it sucks that they continuously kind of teach their children this and teach themselves this kind of stuff, to hate someone because of who they are or because of the color of their skin, something as basic as that. And it's really just really disgusting to see. And in relation to all of that kind of stuff, what has been, as a millennial, what has been your take on like the Black Lives Matter movement in terms of, I mean, it's been around for about almost a decade now, after, you know, the killing of Trayvon Martin. For me, I was when I was in the fourth or fifth grade when I like heard that kind of stuff, and it like gained that kind of attention. And then after that, not with Black Lives Matter, but in regards to school shootings. And then I've seen like, you know, Sandy Hook was one of the first ones where I seen, where I like was walking home from school, and I like wow, something has to change. Like, I mean, this is on video. Like, they've caught, you know, George Zimmerman, you know, this cops, and you heard Trayvon and all the other stuff. This is an open and shut case. You know, this guy came in and slaughtered all these children and teachers. That should be an open and shut case, gun reform, but nothing has happened. So I just wanted to like get your insights on those kind of things, and like probably where you were in your life at those moments, and like how if those has like shaped you or like has influenced you to do anything or has stuck with you or anything like that.
Well, unfortunately, those moments have not ceased.
Exactly. Right.
It's to a point where if I'm blessed to live to see grandchildren, I will tell them scary stories of 2020. And according to my sister and my cousin, it all started with a Popeye sandwich, and it just went downhill from there. And it's leading me to a point where one would need to chronicle. Like I'm to the point of writing a journal, because it's so much trauma. Because these aren't situations. These are life-altering experiences of constant trauma and terror, to be reminded of how it is to be Black in America. And I want it formed and shaped like that, because that's the message that is constantly sending for us to stay in our place. That message has been sent since we uh, were handed down the delivery of the Reconstruction era. And then for those of us that got the message late on Juneteenth, they got a reminder too. So what I want to say is that there's a clear distinction between the political parties. And what one must also recognize is there's been the most mass shootings in the Trump administration than any other administration in our American history. And to see him not acknowledge it is because of his protection of, your gun rights, your Second Amendment rights, that has been widely abused, loosely written, and refused to be addressed because of the investment of finances, money. You know, everything boils down to money. And those children were executed. They were slaughtered. But so were the people in South Carolina when that evil, wicked man walked into that church with the intent to kill. And he lives to tell the story on tax-paying dime. The other evil, wicked devil that walked into that movie theater and executed all of those people. They took him to Burger King. Which one of them they took to Burger King? I think it was.
I think it's South Carolina. He got in the car and gave him
Burger King. You know, Zimmerman. I'm just appalled. He had the audacity to put things up to be bidded upon, because that's what we're worth. We've been bidded upon since we graced this land. I see history constantly recycling itself, but I've yet to hear it vocalized on a platform politically because everybody's concerned about losing supporters or alienating bases or rocking the boat. Trump came in and turned the White House on its head. He's made a mockery of from the appellate court, federal court, and now the Supreme Court. Mockery. This is the same orange man that has paid only $750 in income taxes. I paid 5 times that last year, and I don't make Trump money. So what I also see is America abusing those that are well below middle class, upper middle class, to be the economic engine. COVID has taught me how imperative small businesses are because we make up 50% of the economy. We drive it. So I see a double-edged sword of what America loves and hates, but they hate to love Black people, you know, and we have to understand, what does that mean? What, you know, to be alienated in a space where you have trust issues with the people that are supposed to protect you, i.e. Chicago Police Department. You send your children to Chicago public schools, hoping that, you know, the luck of the draw, but you fighting and scratching to get your baby in selective enrollment. That's segregational practices within the system. Is this 1965 or no? What is this?
Yeah.
You know, then we get through this with Board versus Brown, but then y'all turn around and did it again, and now you're just gonna rename it. See, I don't have time for foolishness. I serve on the LSC of Corliss High School, phenomenal leadership under Principal Muhammad, a well-designed school with an elaborate communications department. Chance the Rapper has poured into our school. And then we're fighting for kids because we have our probation issues and our low performance issues. So then we losing kids because they don't want to come to Corliss. Corliss is right off the expressway. That setup is designed for gentrification. You lose your school, we turn around, we're gonna rebuild it and name it something else, and then everybody gonna want to come to it. That's garbage. That is our school, that's our community school. Our children should be going there, so on and so forth, but we think the grass is greener. So we fall for the okie doke and don't even see the segregational practices that are instituted right before our eyes. I mean, the list goes on and on. So where I stand with this climate of gun laws, I think there should be definitely control, mandates, and etc. But I also see the games between state laws. So everybody, often we focus federally, which it should be regulated federally, but state laws are also a problem. See, what Trump did in COVID was, hey, I don't want to regulate and come up with a national plan. I'm gonna let the states do it. And then he turned around and said, oh, I'm gonna critique, blast you, talk about you, and even if they try to come kidnap you, shout out to the governor of Michigan, I'm still going to talk about you because you didn't handle it right. But you didn't handle it or address it at all. So the power is vested within the state laws. So if we regulate here in Illinois and our neighboring states, Iowa, especially Indiana, don't regulate, it's nothing to cross those lines and bring in guns into the state of Illinois. So we have state law issues that need to be regulated to an understanding or a memorandum of what we can do, whether it's regional or just state to state. And I don't see that happening because of the structure of the Constitution.
Right. And I want to, and like, as you talk more, with education reform and like, you know, funding for education, with your experience, how has that looked like for you? And like you talked about like the selective kind of, you know, choosing of, you know, like, I know a lot of school districts, especially in New York, they do this a lot, where they kind of like have these raffles of families who come in, especially after middle school. After middle school or even after elementary school, you come in and you try to get into a better school, and you just, you know, you go to a place and basically they just draw your number. They just pick your number out or name or whatever, and just read it off. And if you're in, you're in. That's it. No academic merit, no like social economic, you know, kind of distribution or whatever. It's just like random. So have you seen that similarly happen here in Chicago? I'm just asking because I'm not from Chicago.
Yeah,
I want to.
I'm actually I'm a product of, we called it the lottery.
The lottery, yep.
So I'm a graduate of Jensen Scholastic Academy. I graduated in 2001. because my sister was born in 2000. So I was a lottery student, and my brother unfortunately didn't make the lottery. So he went to Mary McLeod Bethune, which was at that time rough. In fact, they were still whooping children, literally belts and rulers at that time in the 90s. So to be a part of the luck of the draw, could I contest that to my academic success? I could. When I reflect upon that, that was also when we also had busing systems. So I rode the school bus and all of that stuff. Now these kids be at CTA as early as 5 and 6, getting on the bus, paying it, and hoping to get to school. I find that to be deplorable, the way that we've eradicated the majority of our bus system. And the lottery system, I find it to be appalling as well. The goal is simple. Every child, no matter what color, no matter what zip code, deserves a quality education. Every child. And the fact that we know that that service is not being provided, and as a tax-paying citizen in this city, I'm upset. I'm offended. Structurally, this is wrong, and we have to do better. And we should have done better decades ago. I'm 33 years old. This has been going on my lifetime. So to be in this fight championing, which is why I serve. My husband and I don't have children yet. We just celebrated our 1-year anniversary. And to know that I have some skills, naturally, I'm going to share it with my local community school. And I'm proud to serve as a community representative. But it's not enough when you have a system. Chicago Public Schools is the 3rd largest school district in the country, District 299. This is unacceptable. You know what their budget looks like? Like, what are we doing?
Right.
What is happening? And then you'll question our revenue, supposedly from the lottery, is supposed to drive our education outcomes and performances to the needs. That I don't see that happening. I've seen the same practices. If you're fortunate, you might get your kid into a selective enrollment, but I see parents fight, scuffle, and scratch their eyes out to get there, and rightfully so. As a parent, you want the absolute best for your child, and you should fight for that. They deserve it. But what is wrong is the fact that it's at a disadvantage for those that don't have the means or the internal household set up to support what it will take. And it takes a lot to get your kid into a selective enrollment, and this shouldn't be the case.
Right. And even this past, I think about to say a month ago, Mayor Lori Lightfoot, gave out a citywide survey from her office, talking about the budget and the funds of certain programs. And a lot of folks called for the reallocation of funds from the police department into other social services, including education. But she has come out and, immediately, almost afterwards, was like, no, we're not going to do that. Yep. Even though overwhelmingly a majority of the folks who filled out that survey from Chicago said that they would like to have the funds redistributed. What is your take on that, and like the kind of negligence in terms of educational funding and kind of like just always channeling it into the police? And it's kind of just like a lot of folks, massive stereotypes around Chicago and its crime, right?
Yep.
And like that's like the first thing you always hear whenever you mention Chicago. And you would think that, well, this is like one of the highest police places in the country, that, in their rationale, that more cops would be less crime, but that's not the case. So,
well, what I will say is one of the few things you hear when you first come to Chicago is don't go south of Roosevelt.
Exactly.
I live nearly 100 blocks south of Roosevelt. So I'm in it. And one thing I would say is that we proud where we're at, and that is a misnomer. And it's hard to fight myths, ideas, and rumors. Recently, I served on the Use of Force Working Group and helped to write the policies that were submitted of the sum of 150, and literally only 5 were accepted. So we wrote a letter to appeal to Mayor Lightfoot, and she wrote a letter back. And it was of disappointment. This is the first opportunity I've had in quite some while to totally dive into analyzing policies of that magnitude. And what I've learned was we had a lot of work to do. So that recommendations of 150 changes that needed to be made were absolute, and to only accept 5. And this is from the Chicago Police Department and all these other people. It wasn't just Mayor Lightfoot. Was ridiculous and a slap in our face to our group. The time invested, we spent months, hours. It was extensive. And to hear her stance. So let me be clear. When we talk about defunding the police, I love to use the preferred term, reallocating the funds, because people,
right. I think that's easier for people to understand.
People get scared and say, oh my God, what I'm gonna do? And I'd be like, so when you call the police, do they come? They'd be like, no, Cleo. So what you gonna do then? It's always exactly. Been a question of what are you gonna do? And then when they come, innately you're scared. It's been too many situations when you call for help and you become the victim.
Right, because they aren't equipped to handle it.
Right, so ultimately, what I believe is the fear monger in all of this is reimagining what safety looks like. And does it have to look like in a form of policing? So I am a proud supporter of CPAC. You know, the fight is CPAC, GAPA, CPAC. And then you got the blend effect, but you got to pick one. And right now, Mayor Lightfoot had made a commitment prior to her installation as mayor to identify with one or the other. That has not been met. And now to see her on the stance of, oh no, we're not going to defund, questions, you know, pretty much, well, what you gonna do? You know, right. So you said one thing, we presented you with this, and both CPAC and GAPA have been at the table in their own rights, developing what the people want for either or, and you've been presented. And then we were born, the use of force working group. And this is what we came up with. What is the bottom line is that the Fraternal Order of Police has some systemic racism, right? Mm-hmm. I won't say it in totality because there are some people that aren't. And what I'm saying also too, you know, for people that are interested in coming for me, I'm not totally against police officers. I have friends that are police officers, family, so on and so forth, who don't know somebody that's with CPD. But in its current state, I'm not for none of it because of the structure. When you get 48 hours after you've pulled your trigger to get your story together, I got a problem with that. Because as a citizen, if I pull the trigger, I don't get 48 hours. I have to get my statement right then and there. You get to review footage. You get to blow by blow, piecemeal, how you gonna tell what you recant.
Yeah, and see the evidence that everyone else has.
Oh, absolutely. So a lot of what's written with the Fraternal Order of Police and FOP contract is in protection of their people. You know, so that ain't right. You know, I was listening to President Obama go on the road for Vice President Biden. You know, how we look at Trump, would you allow a teacher to teach your child to that magnitude, or a principal, a pilot? You know, like these are the same parameters that you hold them to. You know, when we look at violence, we need more police. Has that been the answer? When we look at what happened with the looting in Chicago, not all the police officers were asleep, but when the community said some of them were standing down, it took a video to confirm that they were standing down, sleep in Congressman Bobby Rush's office. Unacceptable. Now, was that all of them? Absolutely not. But there's always a few bad apples that sets a tone. And then when we look at it historically, you know, and policing, Laquan McDonald is the first thing that comes to everybody's mind. You know, after that happened, what happened with that fallen officer? Because they love to call him officer. He fell in my mind. They gave him a broom and a mop to push around the FOP so he can take care of his family. I know brothers and sisters that come out of prison wishing they could pick up a brush and a broom and a mop. And my mama was one of them. Wish they could come back into the system and somebody pick them up to help them sustain their families. So this double entendre, people need to sit at the table. We have an opportunity to just think outside the box and be innovative. What could safety look like for me and my family? Is it community policing? Would you feel safer if you said, hey, neighbor, how you doing? Oh, this is such and such, blah, blah, blah. Would you feel safer if the people that were on the force that are patrolling you live in the community? Because the way that the FOP has it written, they send people that don't even live in the community. That's part of the problem. They don't have a sense of relativity or respect for the people that live here, because they can go do what they do and they go lay their head over wherever they came from. Evergreen, Beverly, Oak Park, unacceptable. So I encourage people that question what defunding or reallocation looks like, read their fraternal order contract and give some thought. If somebody was to ask you today, if I was to take your thoughts and install what policing look like in the future, what would you say? That's what this could be. And that's that people power model. When people realize how much influence and power they truly hold. This is your city. If you don't want to see that statue, you ain't got to see that statue. And then you express why. And if it makes sense, and then we accept that, then we move forward, because healing has to start somewhere.
Exactly. And I mean, I want to be mindful of our time. We have about 5 minutes left. So yeah, I wanted to just, before we wrap up, well, as we wrap up, kind of just like, I know you talked about your role in television and studying that. I wanted to touch on that. This is something I was thinking about, like just like media representation of Black folks in regards to like dismantling the stereotypes surrounding Black folks in media, and like what we can do, or like what is the best way that people can like internalize messages and people that they see on TV. Because, you know, you see the nightly news and all you see is crime, and all you see is these stories of like violence and injustice and all that kind of stuff. And that's all you can think of when you relate to Black people. But then on the flip side, you see, you know, the excellence that we have when you're in our community. So yes.
So honestly, it is a privilege to be in that space, because typically young folks aren't really present, right? So to be your favorite millennial has been an honor, because I get to meet so many legacies that are willing to educate me along this journey, and to analyze on all different sides topics, right? So there's so many different legs and genres and just life in itself. So to be in that space as a millennial allows me the opportunity to play the role of the intergenerational connector. I learned that when I was sent to Japan 2 summers ago. I was a delegate. And one thing that I took away was that, you know, their love for not leaving behind their elders and incorporating them with their young. So to be a millennial in the space between old and then those that are Generation X, younger than me, and playing that happy medium has been fun and fulfilling in the scope of what's on the horizon and where we can go and elevate.
Yeah, and you know, just closing out, like about your run as Ninth Ward for Ninth Ward, the Ninth Ward Alderman position. Can you talk about like the platform that you ran on and like the issues that you want to see addressed and the disparities that you kind of prompted you to want to run? Because I see that, you know, you garnered 26% of that vote in your first run towards an incumbent, and that's really remarkable. So I want to just hear about that process for you and what you ran on to get so many people moving behind you.
So my challenge for Alderman in the Ninth Ward, and our barriers are from Allgale further south to 87th, West Chesterfield, Roseland, Rosemore, Pullman, and etc., was important for me because it was centered around our quality of life. The whole premise of this conversation, having been born and raised here, enough is enough. And I believe when I look at millennials, we ain't going. I am not accepting the whole fall in line, wait your turn.
Right.
Who sent you? Even though Chicago is the city of who sent who, I get it. But, or who do you know to get in this room? You know, I've put in good work. And when you really take a deep dive of who's representing you, whether it's their attendance record, education, it matters, but experience matters too. and the things that they're doing and the deals that are being cut, and then the results. I live in a food desert, man. Like, honestly, I have not had a sit down meal in my ward. And I bought this home December of 2015. Unacceptable. I don't care where you live. I don't have a grocery store. You know, I'm hearing the incumbent say Walmart is a grocery store. On what planet? I'm not buying produce. Now, if you force me, fine. I live in a transportation desert. I have been on the 34 from Allgill trying to come inward. So in order to get to the train, to the bus, unacceptable. You know, and a trip to Walmart and back an hour, the quality of life, our employment rates, our business corridors shuttered, suffering. You know, I shouldn't have to drive miles to get resources. And to step up and have done that with that much support, we have $14,000 is unheard of, and it needs to be heard more. Folks like me that want to step out on faith, find the courage and say enough is enough, have hope that people will agree with you no matter how much is in your bank account. No matter who tells you no, somebody will tell you yes, because you are doing it for the right reasons. My incumbent has been here 20 years. I was encouraging voters that were 20. This is all they know. That's scary because they deserve more. When you want to stay for decades, I believe that's what hurts us. And I'm just only talking about black leadership and black wards. I could talk brown and white, but we stay forever. This role wasn't meant for you to stay forever. Now, some want to secure their pension. You're supposed to build up and go on to greater endeavors. So my run was historic in the sense that many millennials ran across the city. I wasn't by myself. And that's what empowered me to keep the fight going. The nerve of me to do that and the nerve of me to do it again, because it needs to be done, because we've been beat over the head. And until we elect people that can understand, have that empathy, that's what matters. And that's what I say about these little black Trumps. You have to have empathy. You can't forget what it means to go hungry or it means to not have lights. And if you never felt it, talk to somebody that has, and maybe you will find it in your heart to lead better and do what's right. And that's the type of alderman I want. That's the type of alderman I feel like we deserve, 50 across the board, to better Chicago.
Absolutely. Spot, like, a great way to end our speaker series. I want to be respectful of your time. So can you just like tell the folks where to find you, where to follow you,
Absolutely.
and a little bit also about like Roses and Roseland? We didn't really get to talk about that. So, you know, mention that.
So, where to follow me? On Facebook, you can follow me at Follow Cleopatra. Instagram, Elect Cleopatra. That's a whole nother platform. And Twitter, Elect Cleopatra too. In addition to that, Snapchat, I was told Snapchat. You can follow me at Elect Cleopatra. Roses and Roseland was born during these COVID eerie times. I panicked, you know, I'm at home. I actually challenged again for a committeeman. My alderman, Anthony Beal, is both the committeeman and alderman. And that was a unique run, off the ballot, on the ballot, write me in. It is what it is. Great experience. And that next day, they shut the city down. There was no meat, no produce, nothing on the shelves in about 20-mile radius of my home. I was crying in the car with my husband, like, what are we gonna do? And he said, what do you mean? We're gonna pull up at the store. I was talking about my ward. I know people that do not have cars. I was devastated.
Right.
And there was no resources, no PPE, no this, no that. We're locked down. You couldn't come out, all of the stuff. And I said, I have to get out. You know, I'm used to being on the ground. We have to find resources. And I struggled. And eventually I made the right connections and decided to bring roses to Roseland, because I was perturbed by the thorns. It's been 20 years of leadership in the central nuclei of Roseland, and for it to be as destitute, devastated state is unacceptable. So Roses and Roseland, whole purpose is to bring more roses and resources to deserving people, right? So we distribute PPE, detergent, soap, hand sanitizer, masks, feminine products. And one would say, damn, that's a lot of basic items. But when you live in a food desert, a lot of these entities that do call themselves little local stores are price gouging,
Right.
taking advantage of a situation and maximizing on their returns is totally disgusting to me. So quarterly, we give out resources. We also distribute produce, serving our food pantries. I have been volunteering since the start of COVID, realized there was nothing green in the onset. So Gotham Greens has been working with us. So I pick up 50 boxes of produce, distribute that every week. I've been doing that for 8 months now. Method Soap has partnered with us. When we call and ask for soap and resources, they distribute. So there are entities that are in the backyard of Pullman that are giving to help us bring roses to Roseland, and I'm very thankful for that. So serving in 4 pantries, and I'm honored to be with them, because if it wasn't for the work that they're doing, I don't know how our ward would sustain. So the woman that you see, if you check out Roses in Roseland, and so a black woman with a rosy afro, because the Ninth Ward, Roseland, and the surrounding communities is held together off the backs of strong black women, elder black women that are committed to the betterment of our people. And I am honored to just serve and learn from them and give. In addition to that, we also give to 2 elder homes twice a week, because I was worried about them having fresh salad and things of that nature. So, they call me the lettuce lady. So I'd be like, well, let us breathe then. Give us the resources we need. So Roses in Roseland has been a beautiful attribute to my journey. I'm honored to have just installed it, but most importantly, the volunteers, the people that come out there with me, partnering with Soul. Southside is organized for unity and liberation. Greenstone United Methodist Church, Pastor Luther Mason, my family, friends, residents. People have seen us on the news saying, I'm coming. I never forget these 2 sisters that just bought roses just for us to give out. I mean, the love that is shown to Roseland is what drives my commitment every day.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing. I appreciate you taking the time to speak with me today.
Absolutely.